we're going to pull up the marathon dev summary, basically. Okay. And we're going to go over this together. We're going to read it. But here it is, guys. It's going to answer all your questions towards marathon. All right. So here it is. Marathon. On April 28, 2025, the Marathon development team hosted a 2-hour live Q&A on Discord stages with creators in the Marathon Creator Discord. This session focused on addressing questions about the current alpha build, covering topics such as matchmaking, contracts, and quests, graphics, narrative design, and more. The session was designed to foster open dialogue, address common questions, and gather feedback to help shape upcoming updates. Developers in attendance: Joe Ziegler, Andrew Witz, Lars Bakken, and Del Shaffy. Hopefully I said his name right. Table of contents. You got first the gameplay, 2 missions and objectives, 3 weapons, gear and loadouts, 4 audio and visual design, 5 maps and environment, 6 lore and narrative, and 7 development. Gameplay. Gameplay, hook and core mechanics. Runner-based group play, resurrection mechanics, and player abilities are designed to create dynamic combat encounters. Bungie has found success with an action-focused combat model, which has led to interesting brawls driven by these mechanics. Marathon blends an immersive narrative with significant player agency, set in an intriguing sci-fi world. It also emphasizes a variety of combat scenarios, which serve as a core component of its gameplay hook. Upcoming mats will reinforce these mechanics, helping to deepen player understanding and showcase how they shape the core gameplay loop. The goal is to deliver a tactically deep experience that remains approachable, blending strategic decision-making with bursts of action. Marathon offers an extraction-focused experience where players must build and maintain their runner over time. The alpha has been valuable to learn how these scenarios unfold, how different parts of the game feed into these scenarios, resources and consumables, ability usage strengths and weaknesses, build, crafting, and gear differences, challenging with asymmetrical crew sizes. With all this play info and feedback, Bungie is looking forward to making these scenarios even more varied, thoughtful, and interesting. Proximity chat. Bungie has been ideating on it. There's already a lot of organic interaction between players, but still working through how best to implement it in a marathon and what form it should take. It likely won't be ready for launch as there are still important safety and compliances to address. However, if they identify effective and responsible ways to bring it to life, the team will begin exploring how to make it happen. So there's still hopes in proximity chat in Marathon. They're just continuously working on to see how they can put that in the game without it affecting, really gameplay or affecting anybody who plays the game itself. Faction alignment. Bungie is exploring the idea of specific factions having unique effects on gameplay, something that sets each one apart. Looking further ahead, especially into year 1, they're considering ways these differences could lead to deeper implications or even conflicts driven more directly by player actions. TTK. They're actively reviewing alpha data and player feedback. 2 key focus areas are team scaling, how it feels to face off against opponents with varying gear levels, especially in uneven fights like 1v3 or 2v3, and their overall impact of gear on combat. They're considering reducing the influence of gear on time to kill, which is good because I think the TTK, especially for bots and players, are quite exaggerating. Like, it takes a long time. They're bullet sponges, basically. TTK to increase tension and make encounters feel more balanced. The goal is to ensure that players with lower tier gear don't feel helpless, while those with high-end gear don't feel invincible, which was a problem. Bungie is actively evaluating the skill expression of weapons, looking at both the floor and ceiling of gunplay, including factors like ADS speed, recoil, and the dynamics of 1v1 and 1v2 engagements. They're also experimenting with flinch to better define the cost of taking fire, aiming to make precision shots feel more rewarding. While weapons are currently performing well within their intended ranges, there's interest in how they can flex beyond that. Additionally, the team is reviewing overall durability, both shield and base health, and assessing the trade-offs tied to how tanky a player can be. Item icons. Bungie is iterating on the in-game icons to improve visual clarity and reduce similarity across different types. They plan to update the current designs and take a second pass to ensure stronger differentiation. The goal is to group items into clear visual buckets, using consistent shape language for things like health pickups, ammo, equipment, and more. The next milestone is focused on making these distinctions clear so players can easily identify what type of item has dropped at a glance. I like that. Practice range. Prototyping has already been done, but there's no guaranteed it will be ready for launch. That said, it's an active topic of discussion, and if it doesn't make it in at launch, there's potential for it to be introduced post-launch. The team is keeping a close eye on it. There was talks about having a practice range and marathon, so therefore, you can actually, when you load into a game, or before you load into the game, there would be a practice range that would have bots. You can actually, like shoot. There would be all the weapons to choose from, maybe all the armor cores. But what they were saying was they weren't sure about adding the practice range because the practice range would make it to where you can see basically all the items in the game, and they want to make it surprising. They want to make you feel like, wow, amazed. They want to have you just really like intake marathon itself. So they're really thinking about launching a practice range. You guys maybe will see that, or we probably will see that in future updates of Marathon. I guess we'll find out. Matchmaking. Bungie is gathering insights from the alpha and making adjustments to ensure a healthy experience. A key focus is on matchmaking specifically, separating new players from more seasoned ones. If you've been playing consistently, you won't be matched with someone just starting out. Since game knowledge like understanding flank paths and ambush routes offers a major advantage regardless of gear, they want matchmaking to reflect that as the system evolves. So there's one thing they mentioned on the dev stream. They mentioned that matchmaking, and they said like players who are playing for the first 10 hours, will not be matched with other players that are just starting the game. But players who are playing more than 10 hours will be played against players in the higher tier bracket who have been playing for a while. So check that out. Watch that. Solo play. Bungie is evaluating the solo experience for the current game, but the goal isn't to create a mode where solo players only face other solos. Adjustments like tuning loot to fit solo play versus in squad-based play would be required. That said, they're exploring the experience as a gradient from solo to full crew rather than a strict separation. Solo play should feel distinct from playing with a team, but that experience is still being defined and hasn't been fully carved out yet. Now, if there's one thing to note, it would be really cool during the solo play is if you're playing solo, you can actually find other players and you can recruit them to be a part of your team. Now, that is something that my thought process they should add maybe for solo play, but I can't say for sure if they're actually going to do something like that. It's just an idea, but I'd love to see it. I mean, what do you guys think? Would you love to see it as well? Low player versus high level player combat. As discussed with matchmaking, there will be safeguards in place to ensure a fair experience. With each season, Bungie aims to gradually raise the floor, helping players stay competitive. Gear will become easier to acquire later in the season to give everyone a fighting chance. At the same time, they're focused on ensuring these systems aren't exploitable or open to abuse, which is good. Black market / crafting. Bungie is actively monitoring the black market. There will be no player-to-player trading. However, they are exploring material conversions and the cost tied to them to provide alternative options for players. These are several aspects of the black market that they're actively working through and have already discussed. These efforts should help with capping the availability of loot, ensuring a fair competitive balance in high-level matches, which is good. So that means they're working continuously on the black market and crafting. Heat management. I don't like the heat management as much, but I think it's a great idea they added in the game. However, I also think that running and mealing and along with sliding is taking way too much heat. So let's see what they have to say. When it is raining, you get a lower heat consumption. Oh, I never knew that. You get a lower heat consumption as well as being in the water. Bungie is continuing to refine the heat system and how it restricts players' movement. They're balancing overheating as both a movement mechanic and a status effect to ensure it feels impactful during gameplay. That's nice. I never knew that the raining or being in water reduces your heat. So that's new to me. Missions and objectives. In-game events. Bungie is discussing ways to make events more prominent within the game. However, they're careful to avoid creating a battle royale experience. They're not always trying to force players into combat. The goal is to cater to different types of playstyles, including those who prefer a more stealthy approach. Raid bosses. Now, this was a question I asked. There's a possibility of encountering boss-level PvE enemies, but it will be within a PvP setting where other players on the map are also part of that experience. Now, if there's one question I threw out for the Q&A was, okay, are we going to have like raid content in the game to where, we as players can group up and defeat this boss that's going to be in the raid to where it's going to give us high value loot. And if we die, we lose it all. But that's basically the question they replied with. is it will be mainly a PvE setting, so you will still encounter other players without squatting up and being a part of a full team. Sucks when you think about it because you're in battle, you're killing the boss just about when you're finishing the boss. Someone that was right behind you, sneaking, watching you, kills you and steals all the loot. That's sad. Fashion quests and markers. Bungie wants players to focus on quests and exploration rather than being overly reliant on the UI. However, they're working on iterating to clarify where players need to go, ensuring the guidance is helpful without taking away from the sense of discovery. Contracts. All current contracts are in alpha state and will be adjusted in the future. Progression is currently fast, with players leveling up quickly after completing priority contracts. This will be balanced over time. Bungie is also exploring contracts with higher difficulty scaling and increasing the variety of contracts that send players to different locations. Additionally, they're discussing the ability to see the rewards tied to contracts, so players can get excited about selecting and completing them. All right. Weapons, gear, and loadouts. Weapon mods. Bungie is exploring ways for players to extract mods from weapons in the game. Yes, I really want to be able to extract the mods because once you have your mod attachment on a gun, you cannot take it away, which I was very bummed about. While some designs may make it to the beta, the primary focus is on maintaining customization without making it too cheap, as this could lead to a balance issue between space and value. For the economy to function properly and to ensure player decisions have real impact, there needs to be a cost associated with applying weapon mods. Gold weapon mods. There are several mods that enhance how a gun performs, such as making the pocket, magnums, and burst SMGs firing multiple rounds at once. The goal is to surprise players with the gold modded weapons, ensuring they not only perform well, but also look and feel amazing. Bungie wants these gold mods to give players the sense that they're holding a truly unique weapon. Now, I never knew there was gold mods. I wish I did. I've only had a chance to acquire purple, but honestly, I really do wish I could have got a gold mod, because that truly is something. Maybe eventually I'll get it. Maybe during the beta, I'll have a chance of getting it, or even during the full release, I'll have a better chance of getting that as well. Loot rarity linked to damage. Rarity does not affect damage output. Weapon attachments and mods determine a weapon's rarity. It's true, but at least that settles it. Rarity does not affect damage output. So even if you have an all golden weapon, it does not affect the damage. Audio and visual design. Visual arts direction. The world team is actively working on lighting, and many aspects you see are still being iterated on. This especially is true for exterior environments where they're exploring future iterations of the lighting module. They're also evaluating elements like materials, glass, and characters. The UI and faction rep videos are not final yet either. The alpha is a representation of a build and progress, with the polished stage still ahead. Nice. Footstep audio. There are several aspects of footstep audio that Bungie is tracking, such as how much noise you make when crouching. These are areas they'll be tweaking and fine-tuning. The goal is to strike a balance where crouching reduces noise, but they also want to ensure that different surfaces like grass, graded catwalks, and water produce distinct sounds when stepped on, which I think they should. Cosmetics and customization. Bungie is exploring ways for players to express themselves and build their in-game identity through features like emblems, icons, backgrounds, and runner cosmetics. While this system is still in development, feedback is incredibly important. Keep sharing your ideas as Bungie is listening to the community. Which is good, guys. Good. Keep sharing it. Maps and environment. Increasing player count on map. The current player count per map is not being increased at this time. Bungie is still analyzing the data to ensure that engagement per match are at optimal level. Some maps will create more pressure for players to engage, while others may offer different pacing. That was a question on the dev Q&A, was whether or not the player base will be increased. Like, I believe Dire Marsh only has 18. People were asking if it was going to increase from 18 maybe to 20 or to 26 or to even to 32. So at least that answers your question. No, there will not be increased player count on maps. Making the environment hostile. Post-launch, there are plans to introduce more enemy units into the world. Additionally, more hazards will be added, requiring players to stay vigilant and move through the world with caution. So UESC bots were the first. There will be others that will be added in the game. It's pretty cool. I'll be excited about that. Lore and narrative. Lore elements within the multiplayer experience. Bungie wants to honor the lore and hold the past Marathon games in high regard. This is essentially the next installment in the series, so expect to see elements you appreciated before, like the interrupted broadcast. Those fun, nostalgic touches, they're laying the groundwork for those moments. Pay attention to characters like Vulcan and Oni, and listen to what they're saying at the start of a match. It's just the beginning. The teams have built a framework and narrative to support these features. Bungie is not focused on telling a traditional story. Instead, they want to leave you wondering about what's hidden between the gaps in many ways. The player is the detective, and Tau City is the crime scene, which is nice. It's really cool. Additional content, maps, factions, NPCs. The alpha is primary focus on the core systems of the game. You'll get to experience the content that drives the core gameplay in Marathon leading up to launch. So the good news is they did hint during the dev Q&A there will be more factions. And 2, they did also hint that there will be more characters to choose from. You know, you have the base 4 to choose from. They will have more. Development. State of the game updates. Bungie is thinking of more ways to expand on communication in the future. Their goal is to keep conversations open and maintain an ongoing dialogue with the community, ensuring they can respond and be as transparent as possible. What do you say about not having enough time between now and the September release date? How old is this build? The current internal build is approximately 2 months ahead of the alpha build. In general, development isn't as linear as it may seem. There's a lot of iteration, and features can undergo significant changes even within a span of 6 months. The foundational work takes the most time. Tasks that seem simple, like creating an entirely new game mode, often take the longest. In contrast, iterative features and hotfixes tend to move faster and can be addressed during ongoing development. Where's the Pink Cat? Pink Cat is coming in one way or another. So guys, it will be there. Pink Cat will be there. Don't worry. Probably will be during the beta or during the full release coming September. So that is it. That is the Marathon Dev Q&A that happened on April 28th. So guys, thank you. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.